All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Ferns World, the podcast that brings you behind the scenes look at becoming an entrepreneur. We'll get to it. All right. Hello, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of Ferns World. My name is Fernando, and this is my journey becoming a successful entrepreneur. The cool thing about today's episode is that I have a special guest. And her and I are going to talk about what she is doing today to further her entrepreneurship. Not only is she a go-getter, she is definitely a mom, a wife. She's a realtor. She's a yoga teacher. She is an extreme person that never ever can bring her down. And I love the fact that she's on my show right now. So without further ado, love to introduce you to Miss Angela Dew. Hi, Miss Angela.
Hi, Ferns World.
Yeah. First off, thank you so much for being part of my show and taking your sweet time or taking your time out of your busy schedule to be with me. So that's
Happy
cool. So Miss Angela. Okay. So again, let me kind of bring you down a little bit more about the resume, Miss Angela Dew. Again, thank you so much for being a part of here. She's a realtor. She's a yoga teacher, mom, a wife. How old is Axel again? I totally forgot.
Axel is 13 months old, so I have a toddler at home.
And she has a toddler. She also runs she runs a yoga studio, and she also has 2 Instagram promoting good and positive living.
Yes.
Wow. Angela, that's awesome. You know what? The reason I brought you on the show is because I honestly believe you're a striving entrepreneur. You're one of those people that always tries to find a way to, get on the hustle and not just be held down. And I think that's what I love that motivates me most about you, is that you are always finding ways to pursue what your dream is, or always trying to push through whatever, situation is, always trying to strive in entrepreneurship. So I love that about you.
I like to think that I just can't sit still.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah. So today I know just by talking to you by a little bit and what I've known of you, of course, a little bit backstory about me and Angela. Angela is married to one of my best friends, and she is such a good person to me and to everyone that she meets. So I love the fact that Angela is part of my life, and it's really cool to see this. One of the things I've seen her as, she's grown up, is that both I and her, especially her, she's gone up, has had her ups and downs for sure. And so today I'm going to try to, dissect your mindset, your brain, if you will, of how you can help me, maybe give me some advice on how to kind of push through the same, struggles and mindsets. Okay. So that's that's what today is going to be, is just kind of dissecting you. Now, before I get carried away here, just want to make sure I got all my notes ready. Now, I know everything about you, but talk a little bit about how long you've been doing realtor and how long you've been doing yoga teaching.
Okay, I've been a realtor for, it's gonna be 3 years this June. So it's been quite a journey. I've been working with my mentor since I started in the business, and Will Chang, shout out to Great Castle Properties. He's been very carefully monitoring my career, which has helped a lot. I think just having that one-on-one support, having somebody who can be, one, an example, and two, be great guidance in an industry that is always changing and is very high demand, I think is very, very helpful. So I'm very grateful for that. Teaching, I've been teaching since 2011. So it's been 9 years. So it's almost been a decade. But I'm sure you're going to ask me more about that a little bit later. Yeah, it's definitely my passion. I like to think of real estate as what I do for a living, and teaching yoga as what I do to improve myself in life, as well as helping others as well.
That's really cool. So I love that you mentioned that, the fact that you do something, meanwhile you're building your passion, your yoga teaching. So you've been doing real estate for a few years now, 3 years, and you've been doing yoga teaching for, your passion for the past 9 years. So that's pretty epic. Do you now before I get carried away here, I'm gonna try to get to more. But real quick, I want to know a little bit more about your childhood. How was it growing up, and where you originally from, and how is it like compared to like living now? And like, how do you like, you know what I mean?
Okay. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm actually named after the city. My mom said she's going to be an angel of the city. So she named me Angela. So, I mean, I grew up what you call ABC, American born Chinese. And I was born in a very, or raised in a very um, Asian community. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, to the point where when I was 14 years old, I was a freshman in high school. I had a Hispanic friend of mine run up to me after school one day and was like, "Did you know that we are a minority?" And I was like, "There's no way. Like, everyone I see is either Hispanic or Mexican
Yeah.
or Chinese or some kind of Asian descent." And I was like, that's strange, So I kind of grew up in that kind of bubble, sort of say. But I think over the years, I've expanded a little bit, done some world traveling, so I've seen a little bit more. I'm relatively still predominantly in Los Angeles, so things haven't changed much in terms of where I live. Although I do think that society and generations have changed a little bit, culture has changed a little bit. But I was from a divorced family. I grew up with my father, which people found really strange because most divorced kids grow up with their mother. So my father raised me um,
There it is.
like a boy, like I did everything around the house. I painted, I moved things, I gardened, I did a lot of housework, like, and I don't mean like chores of washing dishes and doing laundry. I did that too, but I mean like I mean like I like hammered in nails and like moved planks of wood and like placed out bricks in the yard, and I did all of that. And he always told me that you have to be independent. You never know what's going to happen or what your life is going to be like. And so that's kind of how I was raised, just with a single father. He is an immigrant who didn't speak English very well, so I kind of saw him work 12, 14 hours a day pretty much my whole life. He's still at the same factory job, but he did a lot of things on the side and did a lot of self-development. um, so I think that that's kind of where it all started in terms of self-development. And
What is you said that your dad does the factory. What does he do for a living? What is he?
he's a machine operator for a paper box company. So he does like packaging. So if you think of like C's candy box or
Hmm.
like OPI nail polish box, he actually runs the machine that prints that box.
Huh. And
Yeah.
he's been doing this for ever since you.
30 something years. I think he's going to retire in the next couple of years. But while doing that and raising me as a single father, he also had a photography business. He was basically like the community photographer for all weddings, funerals, quinceañeras,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
like the photographer
There
for
it
the
is. That's
communities.
that first step. That's the first step. Childhood. That's where you learned all your entrepreneurship. That's great, man. For a single father to do that, dang,
Yeah.
it wasn't easy raising you.
Sure not.
Would you say you were pretty like a troublemaker growing up, or would you say you were just kind of like,
I would say that I would say that as a child, I was very good. I was told I was a very good baby. But I do have to say that probably the teenage years made my dad's hair go gray. Let's put it like that.
so would you wow, so you learned a lot from him. And how is that compared to how do you like transfer that into how you live now as far as raising your son, having a son and
I think that the independence thing is really big, from how I grew up to
mhm.
how I feel like I'm raising my kid. I mean, I let him fall down, like um,
Eat the dirt.
mean, I'm okay. I was told this very beautiful quote when I was pregnant, which
Mm.
is, um, your children don't belong to you, they just live through you. And I think that I have to constantly remember that, or remind myself that like I don't control their lives. Like one day, me looking at myself as a successful parent means that my child is going to be self-sufficient and independent and able to make his own decisions, have his own opinions, whether I agree with them or not. And I'm not quite there yet. He could pretty much listen to everything I say because he's 13 months old. But ask me again in 13 years, and we'll see where we're at.
That is true, man. That is true. What now that you mentioned about how that your child isn't yours, and I love that because it kind of brings me to what you and I were talking about is what you yes, you teach yoga, but you also teach a beautiful part about yoga, and it's light, right? Light teaching, is that what it's called? Is that what you call it?
I would categorize the work that I do as light work. And the reason why I would categorize it like that is because um, darkness, like a cloud, hangs over all of us in different ways, and like whether that's grief, or you're dealing with a divorce, or you're dealing with, whatever it is, bankruptcy, or anything. I think that everybody has different, what I would quote, darkness in their lives, where they're seeking light, where they're seeking a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of love, a little bit of like, how do I find joy within myself? And that I feel like is really what I do in my yoga practice. I also teach meditation and the ancient art of sound healing as well. So a lot of like vibrational energy work, which I know sounds like very woo woo. It's slowly making it into the kind of mainstream
Mm-hmm.
alternate medicine or holistic medicine. And I think that it's really important for this stage of humanity. We're reaching a point where technology is really prevalent, where we're beginning to be very disconnected. Right. So we have like social media, Facebook, Instagram, where we're staying connected, but at the same time, we're also being disconnected because we're no longer having that face-to-face
Mm-hmm.
interaction. I mean, I know we're in quarantine right now, but like
Yeah.
the conversations that really
Yeah.
spark ideas, that really spark creativity. I think that we're like lessening and lessening through that with the high pace society, the demanding society, the consumership of our society. So, and it's coping. I really think that what I'm really trying to do with my light work is how do I provide people with tools and skills, very simple ones, like a 5-minute meditation or like a very simple yoga routine, to add into every single day that can be a coping mechanism or can be, a focusing
Yeah.
tool, so that you can really deal with what life is giving us. Because the human like being, we're designed very beautifully and we're very adaptive, but we're not exactly designed for this type of society that we're living in right now, and we're not adjusting as quickly as the world is changing. So
Yeah.
so that's what I would like to think
That's
that
so
I'm.
that's so funny you say that because you and I also have talked about that we follow almost the same people. One of them is Sadhguru, and this guy, we both love. I mean, I love watching this guy. He's an Indian mystic. If you guys don't know who that is, he's definitely a yogi, and he's like he tells you simple little phrases that like get you crazy. But anyways, one of the things he's mentioned is that same thing you were talking about is that um we are people, we have this problem right now in society that we are increasing the technology level, right? We want to increase the knowledge of technology, and we have all these things in the grasp of our hands, unlimited information, unlimited, just countless stuff that we can, at the touch of our fingertips, right? And the mention that he says is like, but the one thing we are forgetting to do is to work on ourselves,
Yeah.
to connect and in like understand who we are as individuals. But we're so caught up in like everything else that we forget to come back and look at ourselves. And I love that you're in that line of work. Like I think that's super crucial. And you're right. I think it's definitely turning, it's like everyone is now understanding like it is time to get
it's
a little bit more about yourself.
to spark that light. It's really time. And maybe for another episode we'll go into like the actual
Yes.
elements of it, but I definitely think that it's something that everybody needs. We definitely need coping mechanisms, and we need tools set in place so that we can deal with life. You know, like you don't meditate to get better at meditation. You
Yeah.
meditate to get better at life. So that's what I'm here to do, just to make people's lives better. And that's the same thing with being a realtor too. Like it's like people, it's like the American dream. It was my dream from when I was really, really young. My dad was always like, invest in real estate, invest in real estate.
Yes.
And when I finally did, I,
Mm.
I, I understood, like I understand now, like one, they're not making any more of it, Mother Earth, there's only so much of it.
Mhm.
And so, it's also like lifestyle is kind of where it starts, and lifestyle starts at home. Your home is like the extension of who you are. That's where life happens. And so I think that's also another part of the reason why I'm in this industry, because I want people to have that. Like it starts with first the individual, like the I, the me,
Mhm.
the fulfillment within myself. And then it kind of moves outwards from there, me and my significant other, or me and my family unit, and then the community, and then the nation, and then the world, right? So I feel like I'm just kind of like in that beginning stages, working with the individuals, and then working with those nucleus families to create joy, create change, create great lifestyle. And I think that just in that, because I can't do it all, but I could do those little parts. Just in that, I think will make a difference. Yeah.
I love your choices in your careers, because they, to the common, I mean, to me, if I were to look at a realtor and a yoga teacher, I'd be like, there's no way, there's no connection between those two. But
Yeah.
you just connected it. You just said there is ways to feel a connection with your house and feeling good about yourself and about life, and growing in life. It's
Mhm.
almost like you are like giving them not only the mindset, but you also, I feel like you're giving them the capsule, or you're giving them the the uh, the vehicle to like
Yeah.
grow.
So my slogan is,
Mm.
um, your body is a home for the soul, just as your house is a home for your body.
That's good. That's good. I like that. I like that a lot. All right. I just got, so today my loan officer, got all happy, right? So today his wife made this for me and he dropped it off. Isn't that
That's
beautiful?
Yeah. Is that the longitude and latitude of your home?
I don't know.
You might want to you might want to check that out. That's
I,
that's probably exactly where your house is. That's like your address.
y'all didn't see that. Y'all know where I'm at. Okay.
That's a beautiful gift.
Isn't it? All right, all
Mhm.
right. So we know what realtors do. We have an idea what yoga teachers do, right? People just think it's just meditation and stretching and stuff like that. And you actually emphasize a little bit more. There's more to that, and we'll get a little bit more about what you feel what real yoga is. But I guess I want to know is more behind the scenes responsibilities you have for each. You know what I'm trying to say? Is like not what your daily routines are, but what is your responsibilities daily that you have to do?
Okay. So for real estate, I'm in the business of guiding people. And people have an idea of what they want, and then there's taking that and then putting it into a plan and a timeline so that I can get them from point A, wherever they are now, to point B, whatever that may be for them. So my responsibilities there is really like, what are your goals? First and foremost, I am there to listen to what it is their need, right? Because as a realtor, I help individuals and families buy, sell, and invest in real estate. So, and real estate is like a slow game, right? It's like watching equity grow is like watching paint dry
No
over
joke.
15 years, right? So
Mhm.
so it's kind of a long-term investment. So that's the first thing I'll ask, my client is, where do you want to be 10 years from now? Because you want to be able to invest long term. You want to think 8 to 10 years or more, because that's really where your investment is going to pay off. So responsibilities, I feel like, is really just keeping people on track and bringing them resources, right? Because sometimes it's not just like, oh, I want to buy this house, but it's like, how do you get financed for this house? Where's your down payment coming from? How do we afford this house? So there's the resources, so connecting them with people that they need, or giving them creative solutions to how they can get to their goal. That, and then also keeping them keeping it real, to be
Mm,
quite honest, right? Like, of course, you're going to want the best thing for yourself, but it's like, I also have to keep your frame of reference of the industry to what's current right now. Like, if you ask my dad, who, bought a lot of property in the 80s and 90s, it's very different from how the market is now, in 2020. So it's also like being current about how the market is moving, how do we maneuver and move in a way where we can successfully get you from where you are to where you want to be. Okay. And then from where you want to be to achieve that long 10-15 year goal that we're talking about. So I think that that's really my responsibility, is keeping them on track, keeping it real, letting them know really what's going on right now currently, and then also providing resources of how to do that.
mm. So
Um,
resources, I'm sorry, when you say resources, like, are you saying like you give them a list of like loan officers, you give them a list of like um um places you feel like are going to be, sold at a higher state? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Is like, how do you find your information, and how long do you really spend looking all this information for this one person? Because when I bought my house, right? It's this, like, because for homeowners, they understand the process, but for people that want to become realtors and people that want to buy a house, it's like, it's a pain in the butt, dude. It's a pain in the butt. Like, but I
process.
didn't, huh?
It's a process.
I didn't realize how much more work realtors do, So I was like, when I was talking to my realtor, she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll handle it. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll handle it." And I'm just kind of like, huh, like, what else can I do to you? You know what I mean? What else can I put stuff on you?
Yep.
So what do you take off the customer? What do you take off them? Like, as far as like, obviously as a homeowner, I'm like, I just want a house.
Yeah.
But you have like, obviously, like, your own logistics, right?
Yeah.
How long does that normally take you for all that logistics? And
So every client is different. That's like going to be true all across the board.
yeah.
Every client is different. I want to say that the process is anywhere from for a buyer. Okay, for a buyer, I would say the process is anywhere from 6 to 8 months to 18 months. Like, that's kind of what I've seen in the past couple of years. And really, it's because we're really narrowing down your search. Like, when I sit down with somebody for the first time, usually what they want is like this big.
Mm,
The house that they want is a tiny little speck that's like this far away, right? So your job is to go from here to here, and in order to do that, you're ruling things out, because a lot of times it's not about finding what they do want. It's eliminating all the things that they don't want, right? So there's stuff like that. So seeing homes, of course, is one of them. So it depends on what their goal is, really. If they're buying for themselves, so like, let's say it's a young couple, they're about to have kids, then maybe school district is really important. Maybe where you work is really important. Maybe being close to your parents who are going to help you babysit are going to be really important. So it's really like asking the right questions to narrow down their search. Yes, I do provide lenders. I provide contacts to home inspectors, to contractors. I have done a lot of remodeling projects for my clients even after they buy the home. So I want to say full spectrum service, like
yeah.
from the second you have the idea, like, oh, I want to buy a house, to moving in, to booking your mover, to making sure that your security system works, or everything.
The house inspection.
Yeah.
Like, I really needed help with that. The way she was explaining things to me, I was like, I just want to buy a house. I didn't know how to do all this stuff. And I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. So tell me more. What about responsibilities in yoga and teaching? Like, like,
Okay, that's also every person is different. So that's actually what I love about what I do is everybody has a different story, everybody has a different need. For yoga, um, I teach some consistent classes that people can like get introduced to me as a teacher and how I teach and my style because everybody has a different style and maybe mine's not for everybody, you know. So I do teach a couple of like weekly classes. But on top of that, I do help manage a studio, kind of oversee how everything is running, making sure that all the clients are happy, all the teachers have all of the resources they need to do what they need to do. I also do one-on-one services. So I do in-home visits. This kind of ranges because everybody's different. Some people are working with like a physical limitation, whether they had just had surgery or they're a little bit older and they're working on, balance or focus. And then some are really like building strength, like a bodybuilder who also needs flexibility. So again, we're going to be working on that. Some are working through grief. They've lost somebody in their life. That's actually a really popular one. I get that a lot. Um,
Really?
Yes, that's actually what I get referred for the most is when they're grieving. You need a way to process your own thoughts and your own feelings, and yoga and meditation and sound healing is really good for that because it gives you a lot of avenues to process thoughts, to process and access maybe memories or releasing trauma or releasing past memories or just letting go
This
of
seems like this is a lot of hours in research and talking with this person, right? I mean, that's
yeah.
like you and I talking right now, and you're just trying to get to know who I am or where I'm coming from, right? I mean, this doesn't take like 5 minutes, and let's just get into it. It's like it seems like it's pretty a lengthy process to get to know someone.
You would think so, but this is not like talk therapy where you hear people going to therapists. I mean, I think that works as well for some people, but there are things that you can do that kind of works across the board
Mhm.
um, for all humans, really. Like there's certain exercises. Breathing is good for everybody, like, and breathing is good for a lot of things. So I don't need to know the exact like problem or the exact thing that we need to be dealing with. I
Mhm.
can get a general sense and then quote unquote prescribe a type of meditation or a type of yoga routine to help with that particular thing. And one-on-one sessions usually are ongoing. It's kind of like going to the chiropractor, every other week, something like that. And then you see a progression and you see what works for a client and what doesn't, and then you kind of like adjust from there. So that's my one-on-one. So I teach weekly classes, I do one-on-one. I also teach workshops, and I think that this kind of allows me to reach a little bit of a broader audience for somebody who's just really trying to pick up something for themselves. Like you don't really have a specific problem that you're working on. Maybe it's like I need help with sleep or I need help with stress. That's like everybody, right? So I do
Mhm.
workshops. They're usually an hour and a half to 3 hours. I do them about once a month on different subjects, and you can come to a workshop and kind of learn little tips that you could just incorporate into your life. So not very like specific to you, but at the same time could still be very beneficial. So I do workshops, and then once a year I also do retreats as well. So I do an international retreat on the island of Cyprus. It's a little Mediterranean island. It's half Turkish and half uh, part Greece, and that's kind of like part of me too, like just to get away, and be on an island, be near bodies of water, be near nature, and that is like full immersion. So you come and it's like 7 days. Like all your meals are taken care of, your stay is taken care of, all your excursions to go see ancient
And
ruins.
do you book all this yourself? You do all this, huh? Or is it already kind of like already booked for you?
So it's kind of already booked for me by a really good friend of mine. Her name is Ozzy Aziz. She's like amazing healer. She was also my doula. She was there when my baby was born.
Wow.
She's from the island of Cyprus, her family, and so she has acres, like I'm talking about hundreds of acres of this beautiful, untouched land on the island of Cyprus that she's currently building a yoga school and a healing center on.
Oh, wow.
I have just been attached to her at the hip as soon as I was like, whatever you're doing, I want to be a part of. And so her slogan is Lightworkers Unite, and I'm there to be united. So
That's cool, man.
I work, I work with other people, and that's the thing. Like, you can't do all the work yourself, So I also have a great support system, a great, great circles of friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so doing a lot of good stuff with good people is just like
I think
providing.
that's, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was going to say that as a realtor, I mean, you have to have a good network of people. If you're going to like refer people to do stuff for your homeowners and stuff like that, I'm assuming you have to have a good, size network of trust. And
Yeah,
then I mean, yoga too, for doing all that, having your own teachers in charge of your teachers, studio, all that stuff. That's just a lot. That's, you have to have a good network, because if you don't got people that you follow, that are, that you can support, and people can support you, it's like you're right. It's, you need that network. It's really
yeah,
great. And I could see how happy this makes you. Like, I could see, like, I thought I was going to see a difference of like feelings from you being a realtor, you talking about a realtor, and you feeling being a yoga teacher. Like, I was expecting two different feelings, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But like, wow, it's like, it's the same. You have such a great like looked on things. You're excited to go to work. You're not, or not even work. It's just excited to start your day. And I think
Yeah.
that's really cool. And I love that you're so happy about that. So, you know, you talked a little bit about how why you are so excited doing this stuff, right? Why are you excited to want to be, or you know, excited to go on your day to do your responsibilities. But what really inspired you to do that? Like, yes, your dad showed you, you can be an entrepreneur. Yes, you can do that. But why real estate? But why yoga and teaching? I mean, can't you do? Isn't there other things you could do? You could be a counselor and
Yeah.
help people. You
Yeah.
know, you could do, I don't know, you could sell cars, for goodness sake, to get people. You know what I'm saying? Why real estate and why yoga instructor, teacher?
So, there's some things that are just like in your path. And I think both of those things were just in my path. But in a short answer, I think I was sent here at this time,
Hmm.
at this moment, at this place on earth, to serve. I think that that's like my ultimate like purpose
Okay.
right now. And I think the avenues of which I serve um is just kind of like what fits my skills and my talents. So real estate, I would back it up a little bit and go back to my dad. He invested in some real estate when I was younger. He took me out to a lot of open houses. He took me out to see a lot of places, and kind of like started grooming me for the industry. Um, and I never really saw, myself in it until I uh, I bought a house with my dad in 2009. So for those of you who don't know, there was a market crash in
Right
2000.
after that market crash.
So there was a market crash in 2008, and my dad had saw this coming for years. He was like, the bubble's gonna burst, the bubble's gonna burst. He was following a lot of economists, and he was investing himself. So he was like, we better
That's
just,
smart.
because we didn't have a lot of money. Like I said, he's a factory worker. He was a single father. So we didn't have a lot of money. But he says, if there was ever a time to buy real estate, it's going to be during this recession, because we're going to be able to afford it. So in 2009, a year after the crash, he was pretty much like, let's go buy whatever we can. So we look at so many foreclosed homes, because there were so many of them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and then we found one about a mile and a half, about 2 miles away from his house, and we bought that house, and it was like nothing I've ever seen before. When you walk in, there were no windows, there were no doors, everything had been ripped out, every toilet, all the like
No.
there's no cabinets, no anything. Like
Wait, wait,
it
wait,
was
wait. Is this the Monty house? Is this the one in
the Pico Rivera house, which I'm pretty sure you've been there.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's a beautiful house.
Now. Now, but that house was like later on I found out it was a meth lab. Like, it's been raided. Like, this is what, like, neighbors who've lived in the neighborhood for like 30 years later, they tell me this, like, after I buy it.
Oh man. Do you ever
So
get old customers?
it's so crazy. Like, and I didn't even know, I didn't know the city very well. I just really liked it a lot. It was a corner lot. My dad has always loved corner lots, and like all the houses around it were really nice, like really like quaint family homes. And now I know, like, they've all been there for like 30, 40 years. So, so that was in 2009. And it was a struggle because I was 21 years old at the time. I wasn't making that much money. I got into this house. I had like roommate after roommate just to kind of like keep afloat and pay for the mortgage. I even lost my job at that time. I lost my job in like 2011, and I didn't have an income. And I was like, I don't know. It was a whole spiraling like situation there,
I
right?
love this. This is, I mean, look where you're at now. I mean, I love these stories. These
Well,
stories.
it built a lot of character, I'll tell you that. But I don't know, I think maybe it was 2015 or 16. I went on like one of those online sites like Zillow, or I don't know what was popular at that time, but I went and I looked up the price, and it had gone up $110,000 from when I bought it. So that's 5 years, right? And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, like, at the time I was making like maybe 30 grand a year. Okay. And like, and I was just like, wait, in 5 years, how did I just like gain this equity of like $110,000? So that kind of blew my mind. That was one of those like aha moments, where I was like, oh my God, this piece of shithole. Sorry.
No, no, do it. Do
Like,
it.
actually worth something. So I had this like epiphany, and I was like, do other people know this?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like, you can invest into like a piece of land, into a home that you live in, because you have to live somewhere anyways, right? So, and then it just rose. Like, I just couldn't like believe it. But at the same time, I was like, this is what my dad's been trying to tell me for a really long time. So I think that was kind of my like aha moment in terms of like real estate. And I was like, this is something that people need to know, like, this is something that I need to help people with, like, to get them into a home, get them in a situation that they don't even know is good for them sometimes, and that's kind of how I got into that, the real estate. And also, I love it because now that I'm doing it, I realize that a lot of the skills and the experience with this home in particular, but a lot of my skills that I picked up in the hospitality industry, which is what I actually went to school for, like, plays really big here, like the follow-up, the customer service, the
Yeah.
putting your customer first, how can I help, that kind of mentality that I picked up from the hospitality industry, really, like, just really went well, being a realtor. So I think that good fit. My dad now is like, I told you
Yeah, yeah,
time ago, so
yeah. That's
yeah, so
cool, man.
that's how
So,
the real estate happened.
so what about yogi? Why do you want to be a yoga teacher?
That one was more like I fell into it. I walked into a yoga class, maybe in '07, something like that, and I met this yoga teacher who ended up being like my spiritual mother. I trained under her for like the first 6, 7 years of my career.
Wow.
She was Greek, which, like, I think is so weird now, because now I'm like teaching yoga retreats like on a Greek island. So I don't know, maybe something spiritual karmic there. But anyways, she was like a badass, right?
Yeah.
She was like in her 60s when I met her. Lola is her name, and she just kicked my butt. Like, I was like a little chubby at the time. I still carried like a lot of baby fat. I had like self-confidence issues,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of grew up as like the fat kid, so I had a lot of like, I don't know, and I grew up like with a single father too, so like daddy issues, right, and all this kind of stuff. But she really like whipped me into shape. Like, she really was like, saw the light in me, and like did two things. One, really like harnessed what was already inside, like all this beautiful, like all
Mhm.
this wisdom. Like she really harnessed that. But two, she really told me like it is. You know, like she was not like, you're late to class, she's gonna call you out on it in front of everybody.
Oh no.
Yeah, you do something that's like a little bit petty or a little bit childish, she will call you out on it. And I'm like 18, 19 at the time. So it's like I really needed that ass whooping, thinking that I knew everything or thinking, you know, like being
Yeah.
a ass or whatever. And she really like whipped me into shape and really made me see that like the practice of yoga makes you a better person. Um,
Wow.
and then the teaching kind of happened because she needed to get a lot of reconstructive surgery from car accidents. So not from her, you know, not from her teaching or her bodybuilding or anything, but
Yeah.
from a couple of car accidents that she's had, and she had some reconstructive surgery. And she was like, "Why don't you just go get like a teaching certificate? You already know a lot. I've been teaching you. You've been following me, and then you'll just kind of assist me in my classes." And then it kind of just like like sprouted from there. I was like helping her teach classes, I would sub her classes, I got my own classes, and then it just kind of like developed from there. And ever since then it's been like this ongoing journey of how do I better myself, and then like like this is good for me, I'm gonna go share that with other people. And that's kind of how the the whole yoga thing started. And you know, and I continued my education. I went to India and I
Yeah.
there for a while. And yeah, it's just a passion that kind of became like this
That's
whole.
crazy. That's crazy. It's like you said, the universe definitely brought you in the right place, the right time, in the right conditions to be what you're looking for, what you're seeking for. And that's freaking cool. Okay. Wow. So much stuff about you. All right, let's get back to a little bit more about the business insight. So, what type of like adversities and obstacles do you face in your industry as far as obviously like real estate, right? Real estate right now is going through some crazy changes, right? I was following what's his name? Robert Kiyosaki
Mhm.
from Rich Dad Poor Dad. He there's a podcast he has out there, and he's mentioning that or I was hearing one of the people were one of his guests was talking about how millennials are not buying homes.
It's true.
And that's like you and I are in the same age group, so we're like at the beginning of millennials. We're like the beginning millennials, but we still want to buy a home.
We're like Gen X,
Yeah, it's like
kind of in the millennial like age group, right? So we're like we can be hip, but we're also kind of traditional. Yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah,
yeah,
I identified with Gen X, but I believe that my age group is a millennial.
dude, all day, right? And actually I try not to, be part of that group. You know? Only because they've given us such a bad rap. But here is just like that type of struggle is like you're dealing with that right now, right? You're dealing with the fact that we're going into a whole nother decade of different mentality now. It's not going to be. Do you believe that real estate will be just as prominent as it is now?
So the cool thing about real estate is they're not making any more of it, right?
That's
So it's
true.
like money where you just print more money, right? Or
That's
like
true.
technology, like here's a new phone, here's a new laptop or whatever. Like everybody, like, okay, real estate covers one of the basic needs, which is shelter. So regardless of like all this millennials that don't want to purchase, that's okay because they still have to live somewhere, right?
Yes.
And let's say they live in a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown that costs $4,000 a month. Guess what? Somebody owns that apartment.
That's true.
So I don't think that real estate is one of those industries where it's like, oh yeah, that's going out. Like no one's buying land anymore. Like I don't think that that's ever going to be true. And I think that Southern California is one of those places that where like value holds very strong, like the land value holds really strong.
Hmm.
So I'm not too worried about it. I do see the industry shifting and changing where before it was the American dream. Like it was just like part of the path on life, right? Like that you do really well in school, that you get into a good college, then you get a good job, then you get married, or then you buy a house, or you buy a house and then you get married.
Hmm.
Now it seems to be more prevalent. Um, and so I think that we're shifting mindset wise away from that. A lot of millennials are not purchasing homes. I think that that has to do with a couple of things. Two things in particular. One is commitment. I think that millennials just don't commit the way that, let's say, our parents did, right? Like our parents, I mean, my dad has had one job and maybe like two or three side hustles like my whole life. Whereas like people my age, I think maybe's had like five or six jobs,
Yeah,
maybe
easily.
maybe not in even in the same industry. So I think that like one, the society is like moving really quick, but also the new generation has a little bit of commitment issues, right? Like they're just not sticking to one thing, which I think is totally fine, but I do kind of see that trend happening. But the second thing is it's really hard to save for a down payment. I think that that's actually one of the biggest hurdles for millennials. So, I mean, obviously, I'm still working with a lot of clients that want to purchase homes, and they are in our age group, you know, where they're kind of like engaged or married or about to have their first kid, something like that.
Mhm.
I do have some clients that are like single. People are taking longer to get married too.
Yeah.
It's one of those, it's a weird time now. But so there is a shift in the industry,
Mm.
but I don't think that it's one of those industries that's gonna like Xerox paper or, you know, or like ink or newspaper that's like gonna
Mhm.
go out, you know. So
That's true.
yeah, so I feel like it's gonna hold strong if you're gonna be an owner, if you're gonna be an investor. I think that it's gonna hold strong. Maybe the number of transactions maybe will get lower. Right now, with what's happening, what I see in the next couple of years is maybe a lot of refinancing.
Mm.
Um, or, you know, like I think people are going to stay in their homes. I don't think that it's going to be like 2008 where there's going to be a lot of foreclosures. But I do see a lot of like refinancing. And then I also see, you know, in the next 10, 20 years, a lot of multi-generational living, meaning
Mm.
millennials will maybe own, but then like their parents live with them, like their parents and their kids,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
So we're kind of like in that sandwich. Like I'm kind of at that age, right, where I have a kid, and then I also have like in-laws or like my parents that
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna like soon, you know, like be responsible for. So I think that's kind of the trends that I'm seeing, you know, in the next few years. Maybe a lot of refinancing. We don't know if the baby boomers are going to move out of their homes, because still a lot of the homes now are owned by baby boomers
Yeah.
and they have a lot of equity. So it's like, what are they going to do? Right? Like, are they going to like sell and then downsize, or are they going to sell and live with their kids? You know, that's kind of
Yeah.
that's kind of like, I think what's going to be the determining factor.
What so would you say, I'm sorry, what I was asking as far as like what kind of obstacles do you face as a realtor? You know, like is that one of the things that you finding the customers for that base, or is it because you just can't find the right home for them anymore? Or?
Yes. So I think that that is one of the adversities, which is I'm getting a lot of clients that want multi generational type living, like a
Mhm.
duplex, like, or I want a mother-in-law suite that's not attached so that my in-laws can live close but not in my house,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And like the thing is, houses aren't built that way. So at least in Southern California or the greater Los Angeles, what I see is there's there is a pool of buyers and they have a certain amount of affordability, but there's not a lot of houses that fit into what they need. So I do think that that's kind of like where we're like missing the, you know, where like the puzzle piece isn't fitting it together
Gotcha.
there, you know. So I think that there is that, there's a lot of demand and not a lot of inventory and not a lot of supply for that demand. So that's, I think that that's one of the biggest things that I see in the real estate industry.
What about yogi? I mean, I keep wanting to say yogi, but yoga teacher. What about that?
Adversity, I think that yoga has a certain like this like certain commercialism
Yeah.
in the Western world, right? That it's like you're wearing Lululemon pants and you're doing the splits, and it's just like for
It's
flexible,
very artistic and beautiful.
like fit people. And I think we need to break that mold, and we need to break that like really like in a big way, because but I think that that's my adversity for that industry, is that people don't think that it's for them, because what they see out there is
Mhm.
not them, right? Like I get so many middle-aged, okay, that's like the age group that I work with really is like
Mhm.
middle-aged, empty nester women, who is kind of in this place of like maybe just lost their parents, or they just sent their kids off to college, and they're like in this weird place of like, I don't know who I am. I spent all this time in my career or tending to my children or taking care of my parents, and now I don't have that, and I don't have an identity. I don't know who I am. That's kind of like my biggest demographic of who I work with in the yoga industry. And they're looking at yoga like those 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 athletic
Yeah.
clothing companies that show yoga as like a very petite, woman who's doing all kinds of pretzel-y type things. And like most people who need yoga don't fall into that, like that archetype. Like they don't fit into that mold of what
Yeah,
like
that stereotype of what a yoga, yeah.
stereotypic like yogi. So I think that it's breaking through that. It's introducing yoga in a way where it's not intimidating, and it's very where it's very easily like immersed into people's lifestyles. So I think that that's like I think that's the hardest thing, is really how do I get people to see that this can be for them.
Wow. Yeah, I could totally see the that whole like movie star Hollywood yoga and like, oh, I'm not gonna ever get to that level, so I'm not even gonna try kind of mentality,
Exactly.
and then the whole house like so when I know for a fact, like you have had people come to you or you've met people that are very pessimistic in your industries. Like, oh, realtors, you're never going to make enough money. It's such a hard industry to get into. Yoga teachers are so hard too, because you have to invest so much time and put in, and you might not even like the right people. They might be, babysitting. So out of
Mhm.
all that pessimism, right? All that craziness that people are trying to throw on you, and you feel it from societies, and you feel that cringiness that you know you're a mom, you're working all these jobs, and like how do you do it? But like, are you sure you want to invest that much time? So what do you tell yourself to kind of push through that? What helps you? Is there like a reward that you see yourself like having? Like, yeah, this is my little carrot. I'm gonna have this carrot when I do this. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, how do you
Yes,
push
I
yourself through
do.
that?
Um, well, first of all, I never define my success on the like the number that's on my paycheck. Like I never defined my life that way. I think that success for me is like living the lifestyle that I want to live. Like I don't want somebody telling me that I have to get up at a certain time and be at a certain place, and do this kind of work for the man or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I think for me, having the lifestyle that I want, which is really, I want to be able to be at home. I want to be able to raise my children myself, or my kid, the one I have now, but and maybe more soon. I don't know. And really like have that lifestyle, the flexibility of being with my family, because I think that that's the most important. Going back to first the self, then the family, then the community, then the nation, then the world. Um, so that first and foremost is like that's like that's like high on the horse, like my family and how I can spend time with them, and I could still have like relations and bonding with people that I care about. So that, and then the bigger carrot, I guess you could say, is like leaving the world a little bit better than when you came. Like,
That's your motivation, is what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, like that is the end goal for me, because I mean all the materialistic stuff, you can't take it with you when you go, but like your legacy kind of lasts forever, like Maya Angelou has a great quote: people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget the way that you made them feel. And nobody's gonna forget like the day that they get the keys to their new
That's
house.
true.
They're not going to forget like that aha breakthrough, like, oh, I feel lighter, I feel like I'm not, you know, so heavy with this grief. I don't like, I finally know who I am, or I rediscovered myself, you know. And people are never going to forget that. And I think that that's what's going to live on, you know, even when I'm gone. So I feel like that's the work, that's the
That's your
reward,
reward. Yeah.
that's the reward.
That's your reward. That's your motivation. That's what you're always seeking for, that path. Oh, I love that. Seeking that path of happiness. So, I mean, that doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound like it's an end, but I'm going to have to ask you the question. When are you going to stop?
Do I have to stop?
Yeah. Well, no, obviously not. But do you know what I mean? Like, what's going to cause you to stop? What will make you, Angela, here is, here it is. You don't have to do it anymore. What, like, what will make you stop? Do you not see yourself stopping, or what do you?
No, I don't. I don't. Like I see myself like 95 and like being in front of like 100 people and just telling them that I'm 95 and I do this yoga practice every day and I feel vibrant and great. Like I mean, I hope so. I hope that that's, you know, what I'm going to be doing.
That's cool.
Even like late in my life, real estate wise though, I think I don't know. It's really like taxing on the body and on the
Mm,
mind. It's work, you know, and you're carrying a lot of responsibility for people. Like it's like a very big purchase for people. It's a very big, like it's something that people do once, twice, maybe three times in their lives. So it's like a big milestone in people's lives. So it takes a lot out of me. But I don't think I'll ever like not be a homeowner, and I don't think I'll ever not feel like real estate is a good investment. I think I'll always be an investor and I'll always be a homeowner, and that's probably what I'm going to pass on to my children,
I love
really.
that. I love that
Yeah.
mentality. I just love it because a lot of people are seeking retirement. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I
everybody
don't want
wants to retire.
to retire.
Everybody wants this epic dream of retirement. Oh, I'm going to retire. I'm going to live off of this. I'm going to live off of this. But I have a lot of patience, and I know you probably see a lot of clients as well, that once they retire, it's kind of like they have to discover themselves. They have to kind of find a new way of like getting through the day,
Yeah.
finding their thing. And you were like, nah, I'm gonna stop doing this. And that's cool. I don't think I ever see myself stopping, always trying to improve and grow. And I love
You
that.
know what would stop it maybe
Uh-oh.
is if I had a lot of grandchildren. I think that I might just
There it
spend
is.
my time doing that. Like that's one of the that's like high on my list right now.
Okay. So yeah, okay, I could see that you stopping there. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So sorry. All right. Mm, we're gonna skip a couple questions. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is so I just love it. In your own words, what would you, I'm sorry. No, that's not what I want to ask you. What is your you already answered all that. You're on it. You're like answering all my questions.
What else do you want to know, Fern? What is Fern's world?
Oh, here it is. Yes, yes, yes. So tell me, what's your daily routine like? Like, what do you do? What time you get up in the morning? What time you go to bed? I mean, you have a lot on your plate. Like you do. Like it's impressive. A lot of people not even have half of that, and it's like it's so overwhelming, right? So how do you fit all this in your? What's your daily routine like?
So I did mention I have a toddler, right?
Yeah.
So my schedule kind of revolves around him. Um, I don't know, this past year has been kind of interesting because I kind of like really have to like tap into my inner yogi and like move with the flow because children don't follow your schedule. So so my daily ritual has changed a lot in terms of when I get things done, right? Like so before I had a kid, I really wanted to get like meditation, yoga done, and listen to like, the inspiring podcasts and all that stuff like in the morning before my breakfast, right? But now, okay, I do that. And then like I have my work, like my whole section of like work time where I'm at the computer, I do certain things. And then at a certain time I start making dinner because I know my husband's going to come home. So I used to have like a really nice like schedule, and certain days I go for a run, certain days I practice yoga, right? Now though, for the last year, it's been kind of like 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 thrown everywhere. But here's a couple of things that I always need to do. I don't know if I do them daily, but I always get it in because it keeps me sane. So one is I meditate. Um, right now it's been more like right before bed than what I would love it to be, which is in the morning, but it's okay. I still get it done. I meditate. It's very, very important. It keeps me centered. It keeps me like clear, like thinking from a place of clarity and less from a place of like anxiety and stress. So meditation, I definitely do that. I always have a yoga practice. Sometimes it's a 5-minute stretch. Sometimes it's an hour and a half of like hard like working out. So it just depends on the day, especially now with a toddler. And then I try to always have a good conversation. I'm very big on talk about it. Talk about it with somebody. Have your person, and it's different all the time. Sometimes it's my sister, sometimes it's my best friend, sometimes it's my cousin, sometimes I talk to my dog. Like, but just to like get things out, because sometimes there's just something like there that you need to get out. So meditation, yoga, and have a good like conversation. And then once a week I also like to have a really good meal with a friend. Like I like just sit down. I used to do this alone and I actually really liked it. I'll go to a restaurant, like sushi restaurant or whatever, and I will sit and I will have a meal by myself. Like I'm not talking to anybody, nobody's having my attention, nothing. Like I'm just enjoying good food. I like to eat. So I used to do that a lot. Now we're in quarantine, so not so much. I'll sit and drink warm milk. Oh, that's something that I do a lot now. Is I make this thing called golden milk. I learned this from an Indian woman when I was there traveling and learning yoga. It's basically warm milk that you warm up with ginger in it. And then you put like turmeric, cinnamon, and some black pepper, and then you sweeten it with honey. And I'll sip that at night before I go to bed. So I'll make that the same time I make my kid's bottle. And then I'll sit there and I'll sip my milk, and then I'll give him his milk and then put him to bed. But that's like the calming, like starts to shut me down
Mm-hmm.
mentally, physically, and like and then I'm like able to go to bed. So those are a couple of things that I do.
Those are your rituals. So your rituals actually start in at night time before you go to bed. These are the
A
things that you
lot.
need to do this for yourself. And it sounds like you really love work. And this whole conversation is like this whole interview that I've been having with you, and I could hear in your voice and I could see in the way you answer is like it's mainly about working on yourself and working on like your business and your mindset, your friends, your family. It's like it's a constant thing. And that's freaking cool, man. So I know how important that is to you. So what are the type of characteristics you think through that have you developed to, you know, to keep doing what you're doing? Some of the things? Is it like, would you say discipline? Like, you know what I mean? Like what type of characteristics do you conquer, what you love that get you to, continue what you're doing? I guess.
I think this works in any business, but follow up, I think, is like the number one thing that you can do to be successful is following up, right? Like it's cool if you're creative and you can come up with ideas and solutions, but if you don't follow up, it doesn't happen. So my whole real estate business is based on that, is like having a conversation with somebody and then they talk about, oh, my mom is thinking about selling her house and buying a retirement at so and so.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This happens like at a dinner party, right? But the follow-up is where the magic is. So when you call back the next Monday and say, hey, I remember you said this thing about your mom, or like, it was great seeing you. I remember you said this thing, and following up with it. And that is like planting a seed, right?
Mm.
'Cause I think all businesses and actually in life is sowing and reaping. And if you don't sow your seeds, you don't reap a harvest. So that's like the philosophy that I follow when it comes to business is like you have to create the opportunity. Like no opportunity is gonna come to the door and like, hey, I want to sell my house, or hey, I want to buy a house. Will you help me? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't happen that way. So I think following up, showing up and following up. That's what my mentor Will Chang taught me. Like the first day we sat down, he goes, "There's only two things you need to do to be a successful realtor. One is show up, and two is follow up." And I was like, I could do that. I could do that. So I think that's like the discipline that I have when it comes to business, and I think that's like for everything. Like for having a good relationship with your parents, for having a good relationship with your spouse, like you just have to follow up. Like, oh, they did that thing, you make a note of it, and then follow up with that. So I think that's the really big thing.
I think you're absolutely right because that's what I love about doing this interview because I'm taking as much advice, all the advice that you're giving, and I'm looking at my own business and how I can apply it. And I think that's a big key also is following up because I have clients that I do, like tattoo removal or eyebrows and stuff like that. And following up with that person is, you're absolutely right. It's fun to do that. One and two, it's weird, but you get the anxiety out of your system, right? Do you feel that same thing? Like if you don't like, you're always thinking about how are they doing, and should I give them a call or whatnot? And when you do it, you feel so much lighter, huh? You feel so much better doing it, and they just talk to you just fine. And I love that you do that.
So, a beautiful quote that my mentor shared with me was, I'm going to do it justice. Unfinished work is exhausting. Finished work is exhilarating. And like the work can be anything. It could be like, okay, I have a list and it says call John, call Mary, call Sue, right? And it's like if I don't finish that, it feels so heavy. Like at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't do this. And it doesn't matter how many things you did, like you feel like you didn't have a fulfilling day. But when you like, like I do a lot of to-do list and a lot of goals.
Mhm.
So when you like physically can like check off that box, it's exhilarating. You
It's
feel,
such a good feeling.
yeah.
Uh, in that, I don't know if you've been, I don't know if I mentioned you a little bit more about the fact that I have a Instagram, right? And I've been doing to-do lists every morning.
Oh, yes, I see that. I
Oh,
see your,
okay, cool. So I've been doing those to-do lists, and you're right. It's like every time I check one off, and as lazy as I am that day or whatever the case, but if I check that off, it's like, yes. And it makes, like you said, it pumps you up to do. I don't know if you want to do more and more. Like, that's what I love about doing my to-do lists. Oh, okay. Great. I wanted to ask you, so before we start closing things up here, I wanted to talk to you. What kind of advice would you give your younger self? What would you give you, like, when you were 18, not having like, I'm not trying to throw this in your face, but not having a mom, having a dad that taking care of you like crazy. You said you have a little bit of emotional self-consciousness with your body. Like what would you tell yourself knowing where you're at now, right? What would you tell yourself when you were that age?
um, you are enough. I think that doesn't get said often enough. And it kind of stems back to all those things that you were saying that I really felt like at my younger years, I still feel young, but like my younger years, I overcompensated a lot. Like I did way more than I was asked to in every job that I had. And I tried to like give a lot of value, which are all great, but at the same time, it's always like left me sometimes feeling a little shortchanged, like that I'm not getting paid what I deserve, or I'm not getting the credit that I deserve. And I think that that's partially my fault for not believing that I was enough, that I felt like I had to give more in order to be worthy, that I had to, so I think that's what I would do. I would go back and I would tell myself that you are enough. who you are and what you're doing is enough. It's gonna get you to the next moment, and you'll continue getting better. And you don't have to be so hard on yourself. We are all probably our toughest critic, and I definitely am like that, and still am like that. And so yeah, I would go back and say you are enough.
That's
Actually
good.
write it somewhere and tell myself now.
that's that's crazy. I love that you said that. I mean, I was expecting something like a cool fancy quote, like something like, I don't know, something yogi of you, but that's that's concise. It just gets to the point. Um, ah, wow. So you talk a lot about your dad. Would you consider your dad your hero? Would you go to him for mostly all your advice? Or who's your hero and who would you get advice from?
He's definitely my hero. He's my daddy. So he's definitely my first mentor. Like I think he's the one who turned me on to reading self-help books, and like seeking knowledge on my own. So I give him a lot of credit for that. He's also made me very independent and very like hardworking, because man, that guy was hardworking. It is hard. He still is, like,
Oh
so
yeah.
hard. So I think that I get a lot of that from him. Mentors wise, I have so many. I mean, and they're not like these like fancy people that do this for a living. Like the inspirations I get are really like from my clients. Like there's some, and it's not just like the yoga breakthroughs, but even some of the ones that are like I had this couple once who was trying to buy a house, and they were qualified for a certain amount. So they went and they like looked at homes, and then they came to me like a couple months later and was like, this is not really what we're looking for. Give us like 3 months. And I was kind of worried, like, oh no, when they go silent, it's kind of dangerous, right? They might
Mhm.
not come back. And then they come back, and one of them had gotten a new job with a pay raise, and the other pretty much went up to her boss and was like, me and my fiance are trying to buy a house, so give me a raise. And she got it. And I was just like, wow, like when you have your sight set on something, like you can really go for it. So it's like it's in the everyday people and the
Mhm.
everyday happenings that I feel like I find my inspiration, and the teachers, right? So the fancy quote in yoga is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So it's when you're ready to,
Love that.
like, when you need something, it'll show up. Like I have a lot of faith in that, that whatever you need will be right there. Same thing with my real estate mentor, Will Chang. It was like I took my test, I got my license, and then I was like, I need somebody who's going to be right there, front line, telling me exactly what I need to do. And then bam, there he was. He was the first broker I interviewed with. I went and I interviewed with like 5 other ones, and I was like, no, I'm going to go back to that first one because that was perfect for me. And so that's about it. I mean, I'm like you, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love Sadhguru. I listen to a lot of Tony Robbins. I read a lot of books from energy healers, from economists. And so a little bit of everything. I think,
I,
yeah.
lo- I love talking to a lot of yogi teachers, and I do. I love people that I talk to. I love talking to people that are spiritual, because one thing that I feel that I love about that is that you allow the universe to pretty
Yeah.
much be your teacher. And even when you're just saying, like, yeah, my dad's my hero and everything, but I don't really have anyone give me advice. It's so much like my go-to guy or person. It's mainly more the universe, whatever the universe brings you, or whatever person comes in your life, you are willing to accept advice. And that's really cool. I think I hear a lot. One of my favorite quotes is actually from Arnold, the Governeta, right? He says, I hate the fact that people think I'm a self-made man. He's like, I'm not a self-made man. I'm a man made by millions,
Yeah.
hundreds. So it's like and he elaborates, when I was following him, he elaborates the fact that it's like, I asked for constant help. I had support system. I've had people behind me 24/7. I've asked the right questions, and then in some questions just randomly appeared because people gave me advice. And it was just like what you're saying right now. It's just, and a lot of people think it's like, oh, I'm gonna be this self-made guy. Like, no, it's like, it's hard. It's hard work doing everything by yourself. You got to have like friends and a network and a good, and I love that you say that.
Yeah, yeah. And actually that kind of reminds me of like early on in other businesses that I've tried and failed actually. Uh, I think at that time I was really trying to be a leader, and over time and over a lot of different failures, I realized that it's actually much better to be a supporter. It's much better to one, be humble that you don't know everything, and work with people who can lift you up, like that you could lift each other up, you know. And I think that that's really important. I think that people don't see that anymore, you know, like they look for these icons on like YouTube or
Yeah.
Instagram stars, and they think like, oh, they did it by themselves. Like, I mean, Kim Kardashian has a team, people, like,
uh,
just look like that, you know, like all the time by herself, you know, like we're all helping each other. And I think that it's really important to admit that you need help, because I need help all the time. I like working with other people. I like collaborations, and I like to be of service. Like what do you need that I can help with? And then it feels good that I can help with that one thing. And then it's also good that like other people have other skills that you don't, you know, like I work a certain way, you might work some different way, and together maybe we can really do something, you know.
yeah, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I love that the fact that I have friends like you in my life that I can actually network also with, and then we can network all kinds of stuff. So it's it's a good feeling. Um, what was I going to tell you? So we are going to start wrapping things up. But before, I wanted to ask you one question that I think our listeners or anyone should hear, and it's really if they don't hear anything from this whole speech, right, and your friends are listening to you right now, what what advice would you give, or what advice would you give them, or what one thing you want them to take from you from this interview? I don't know if I tend to talk a lot.
I get it.
Okay.
What I really want people to know is, you know, we often think that we are our circumstances, that we are a collection of our failures and our misfortunes. But I want everybody to know that every moment is a new opportunity for you to choose who you want to be. And if you choose to be successful, you will be. If you choose to be happy, you will be. And no amount of um no amount of like money can do that for you. And no amount of like external material things can do that for you, you know. So I think a lot of people have like give themselves the crutch or like the excuse of like, well, I didn't have an education, or I don't have the money to invest in that business, or I don't have the know-how. And it's like, to be honest, none of those things really matter. If at this moment you choose to be XYZ, like you can make that happen. And it's a personal choice if you choose to. And I hope that everybody chooses to be kind and compassionate, and choose to be the best version of you that you can be.
Wow. There you, oh, you know what, before I close things out, I love that. But yeah, I love that. So Miss Angela, before I let you go, I'm actually gonna close this window and show the fan base where to find you. But first, let's just see, get you onto the website here. Okay, so, oh, what'd I do? Okay. Miss Angela, please tell everybody out there how to find you. And then I'll post, as you're doing that, I'm going to post it up, and then also show them on my internet here where to find you. So I posted up, I put two Instagrams up, your two Instagrams. What Would Angela Do, and the Do Yoga Daily. Do you
Yes.
have, are those the only two areas to get you?
Yes, those are the two areas that you can find me on. I'm also on Facebook. If you just look up Angela Du, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find me. But I do have two Instagrams, as you mentioned. One is kind of like my personal account and a lot of real estate stuff, and like I post a lot of things about my family and stuff on there. That would be What Would Angela _ Do. That's spelled D as in David and U as in umbrella. It's my last name. And then I also have my yoga Instagram, Do Yoga Daily. Again, that's DU Yoga Daily, where there's, daily tips and tricks on how to survive life, really. And those are the ways that you can find me. Feel free to private message me. I think reach out to Fern if you want to talk to me about something more specific. I'm always open to talking to whoever wants to have a conversation.
That's awesome. Miss Angela. Angela, I keep wanting to call you Miss Angela because like I want to make it look all professional. But really, thank you so much for being my friend. Thank you for being part of this show. Thank you for coming on my show and letting me mess with you as much as I can and try to pick your brain. And I am definitely going to take all this in and apply it to myself. And I love that you have like that similar mindset. Because it's so hard. You feel like you're by yourself when you're doing a lot of your business stuff.
Only in a big world.
Yeah, it can be. And it's great to reach out to like the community of business owners that are like, and that's the best part that I was saying is like, everyone hears and everyone sees how epic Hollywood is, how epic the post life is after you struggled, but no one sees the average, the Joes and the Joannes making it, making a hustle. So anyways, again, thank you so much. And we'll see you around, Miss Angela. All right. So if you like the show, thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you until next time. Bye. Angela, I love you so much. Thank you.